He has excellent credit, a six-figure income, zero debt, yet his mortgage application was rejected simply because he's black. And it didn't just happen once, not in just one state, but in 12 states across America, where black people are nearly locked out of homeownership, not because prices are too high, but because of silent barriers that persist every single day. You'll be shocked to see which states are on this list. Today's video uncovers the painful truths behind the data. Number 12. Minnesota. At first glance, Minnesota seems like a dream state. High quality of life, strong education system, and a famously friendly community. But beneath that polished surface lies a disturbing reality. White homeownership rates are nearly 3 times higher than those of black residents. In Minnesota, about 7% of white residents own homes, while only 25% of black residents can say the same. This shocking gap isn't due to a lack of effort or income, but a deeply rooted system of inequality passed down through generations. Take Marcus, a black software engineer earning a 6-figure salary. He applied for a mortgage 3 times and was denied every time. "It's not that I lack money or responsibility. I just happen to be born with the wrong skin color," he says. Many black professionals with stable jobs still can't pass through the rigid screening process imposed by banks. A big reason? Lower intergenerational wealth stemming from decades of racial discrimination, redlining, depressed property values in black neighborhoods, and limited access to financial tools. Meanwhile, white families often benefit from generational wealth, helping them meet lending criteria and build long-term investments with ease. If you had a 6-figure income, no debt, and excellent credit, but were still denied a mortgage, what would you think is the real reason? And if you believe Minnesota is just an outlier, wait until you hear what's happening in Wisconsin, where even perfect credit can't unlock the door. Number 11. Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, having good credit doesn't guarantee you'll buy a home if you're black. Here, you can do everything by the book and still be denied, simply because the system was never built for you to succeed. Think strong finances and great credit should be enough to own a home? Not in Wisconsin. In this state, black applicants are 2.3 times more likely to be denied a mortgage compared to white applicants, even when their financial profiles are nearly identical. I once met Marcus, a black engineer in Milwaukee. He works for a major tech company, carries no debt, and has near-perfect credit. Still, 3 different banks rejected his mortgage application within just a few months. "I'm not short on money or credit. I'm just living in a body with the wrong color," he told me, half joking, half heartbroken. Marcus's case isn't rare. It's the lingering legacy of redlining, a policy that once drew literal red lines to keep black families out of desirable neighborhoods. Today, the lines may be invisible, but the same logic endures. Black neighborhoods are appraised lower, have fewer banks, and offer fewer lending opportunities. Currently, only 27% of black residents in Wisconsin own homes, compared to 68% of white residents. That's a chasm no amount of hard work or financial literacy can simply bridge. If you were denied a home loan 3 times in a row, despite having perfect financials, what would you do? Number 10. Iowa. You might think that in a peaceful state like Iowa, everyone gets an equal shot at homeownership, as long as they have a job and good credit. But the reality is far more brutal. If you're black, your chances of being denied a mortgage are twice as high, simply because you don't fit the familiar mold in the eyes of the system. In Des Moines, black applicants are denied home loans at double the rate of white applicants, even when financial profiles are nearly identical. I once heard the story of Tanya, a single mother and elementary school teacher. With a credit score of 730 and a stable income, she still got 2 rejection letters from banks in just 1 month. "I followed every rule in the book," she said, "but it feels like I'm playing a game that was never meant for me to win." The issue goes beyond numbers. Iowa suffers from a severe lack of support systems tailored to the Black community. There are very few Black mortgage brokers or financial advisors, and most banks lack personalized programs that meet the specific needs of Black applicants. Existing assistance policies are far too generic, incapable of dismantling deep-rooted barriers like credit discrimination, generational wealth gaps, or financial literacy shortfalls passed down through history. Rather than offering equal opportunity, the system needs to create true equity, starting with acknowledging the historical wounds that still shape the Black experience in Iowa today. And from that truth, action must follow. So imagine, you're a teacher, you've saved enough for a down payment, but the bank denies your loan just because you live in a predominantly Black neighborhood. What would you do next? Number 9. North Dakota. You might live in a sparsely populated state with wide-open land and homes spread far apart, and still not find a place to truly call home. If you're Black in North Dakota, hard to believe? This is the state with the lowest Black homeownership rate in the entire U.S., less than 10%. A number that's not just cold, it's haunting. I once spoke with Jamal, an IT technician living in Fargo. He told me that despite having a steady job, zero debt, and solid savings, he still couldn't buy a house. It's not that I don't qualify, he said. It's that the system here was never built to help people like me move forward. And he's not exaggerating. In North Dakota, Black real estate agents are virtually non-existent, let alone Black-owned banks or mortgage programs tailored to the cultural realities of Black families. The deeper you look, the clearer the picture becomes. Racial discrimination in employment means many Black residents struggle to secure stable jobs, an essential gateway to building credit. Add to that the severe shortage of affordable housing for minority communities, and the result is a reality where the dream of homeownership remains completely out of reach. In North Dakota, the issue isn't just a lack of opportunity. It's the total absence of a social and financial ecosystem for Black residents. With no mentors, no supportive lending institutions, and no culturally responsive policies, low homeownership rates aren't just a statistic. They're the inevitable outcome of a system designed to exclude. Would you consider moving to a place where there are no Black realtors, no Black-serving banks, and only 1 in 10 Black residents own a home? At this point, which state shocks you the most? Drop the name of the state you think is the most unfair in the comments. And if you live there, don't hold back. What's life really like for Black people in your state? Number 8. South Dakota. You can pay every bill on time, earn a steady income, and maintain a flawless credit history. But in South Dakota, if you're Black, the door to homeownership can still slam shut in your face, not because you did anything wrong, but because you simply don't belong. And the injustice doesn't stop there. A legal yet insidious practice continues to rob Black homeowners. Dual appraisal. When Black families try to refinance their homes to get lower interest rates or build equity, their homes are appraised lower than their true value, robbing them of wealth-building opportunities. But when tax season rolls around, those same properties are appraised higher, forcing them to pay more in taxes for value they never actually receive. South Dakota also suffers from a critical lack of economic infrastructure for the Black community. There are virtually no Black-owned businesses, few quality job opportunities, and almost no economic policies designed to uplift minority groups. Even highly educated and skilled Black professionals often remain trapped in a cycle of no assets, no investment, no wealth accumulation. South Dakota doesn't discriminate with overt laws. It discriminates through invisible structures, where Black residents are forced to play a game rigged against them from the start. And unless we're willing to confront this uncomfortable truth, this quiet but brutal form of injustice will continue, unchecked and unchallenged. If the home you want to refinance is appraised too low to qualify, but then appraised higher when it's time to tax you, would you accept it or fight back? Number 7. Nebraska. Imagine this. You were born and raised in a neighborhood where every childhood memory is tied to familiar alleyways, friendly neighbors, and the scent of firewood drifting from someone's kitchen on winter mornings. But then, simply because of your skin color, you and your family are forced to leave. Not because you couldn't pay the rent, but because an entire system once wanted you gone, and still does. That's the reality for many black families in Omaha, Nebraska. Since the early 20th century, black communities have been forcibly removed from desirable neighborhoods, areas with good schools and appreciating property values. The scars of redlining remain, now masked in more refined forms like gentrification. Property values rise, taxes spike, and multi-generational black residents are priced out of their own homes. I once listened to Ms. Laverne, a woman in her 60s, who had to leave the home she'd lived in for over 40 years because of an urban revitalization project. "They didn't need to evict me," she said. "All they had to do was raise taxes and cut the subsidies." What's even more bitter? Nebraska's housing assistance programs often feel like a cruel joke, setting income limits so low that working-class black families, the ones striving with jobs and kids in school, don't qualify. They're too rich to be helped, too poor to survive comfortably. So ask yourself, if you'd spent your whole life in a neighborhood, but rising housing prices driven by gentrification forced you out, would you call that progress or displacement? Number 6. Missouri. You can renovate your home, plant flowers in the front yard, scrub every brick until it shines. But if you're black in Missouri, none of that makes your home worth more in the eyes of the system. This isn't speculation. It's a truth backed by painful, repeated experiences. Many black families in Missouri have shared the same heartbreaking story. When they asked a white person to pose as the homeowner during an appraisal, the value of their property suddenly jumped by tens of thousands of dollars. One woman in St. Louis said her home was appraised over $100,000 higher after every trace of her family, wedding photos, children's books, was removed, and a white stand-in was hired to greet the appraiser. This isn't just a personal wound, it's living proof of systemic racism embedded in the real estate industry. In Missouri, black homeowners aren't just undervalued. They often face higher interest rates and stricter loan terms, even when their financial profiles are identical to white applicants. Why does this happen? Because market trust is not neutral, no matter how much we'd like to believe it is. When banks, appraisal companies, and financial institutions operate within a system built on inherited bias, black people, no matter how by the book they play, enter the game at a disadvantage. Missouri doesn't need to pass racist laws to create racial injustice. All it needs is to keep things the way they are, and the imbalance sustains itself. And the most dangerous part? Many victims don't even realize they're being shortchanged because the process feels so reasonable. If you had to hire a white person to pose as the homeowner just to get your house fairly appraised, would you do it? And if you did, would you be angry? Number 5. Indiana. You might have saved enough for a down payment, earned a steady income, and built a dream of owning your own home. But in Indiana, if you're black, your chances of home ownership are still nearly half that of white residents. Not because you didn't try, but because the rules of the game were never fair to begin with. In cities like Indianapolis, the legacy of redlining, a once legal, racially discriminatory urban planning policy, still lingers today. Predominantly black neighborhoods are often labeled by banks as high-risk zones, leading to lower property appraisals and restricted access to credit. Even when black homeowners want to renovate, invest, or build wealth, their loan applications are denied, not due to financial instability, but because their address is in the wrong part of town. But it gets worse. Indiana has enacted policies that, while seemingly neutral, give unfair advantage to cash buyers, usually wealthy, white individuals, or corporate investors. Everyday residents, especially black families, simply can't compete in a housing market where quick cash wins, while loan-dependent buyers are stuck navigating slow, barrier-filled processes. The result? Only 35% of black residents in Indiana own their homes, compared to nearly 70% of white residents. This gap isn't just a statistic, it's a glaring example of how deeply unequal the playing field still is in supposedly equal communities. So ask yourself, is a system truly fair if corporations can buy homes with cash instantly, while you wait weeks for loan approval that may never come? Number 4. Louisiana. In Louisiana, especially in New Orleans, being black means facing more than just natural disasters. It means navigating a long, painful chain of injustices built into the system itself. When Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005, countless black families lost everything, not just because of the floodwaters, but because they lived in neglected, under-resourced neighborhoods. After the storm, billions of dollars in rebuilding aid poured in, but not all neighborhoods were treated equally. Once again, black communities were left off the priority list. I once spoke with Mr. Tyrone, a 60-something carpenter who still lives in the same FEMA trailer he moved into after Katrina. "My insurance didn't cover enough to rebuild," he said, "and now I pay nearly twice the insurance premiums of white folks, just because I live in a so-called high-risk area." But the devastation didn't stop there. Before the 2008 financial crisis, black homeowners in Louisiana were aggressively targeted with subprime loans, those predatory lending packages with sky-high interest rates and punishing terms. When the market crashed, they were the first to lose their homes and the least likely to recover because they had no assets left to rebuild from. And with the racial income gap hovering around 40%, saving for a down payment in Louisiana isn't just hard. It's almost impossible for many black families. Louisiana is known for its hurricanes, but for many black residents, it's the storm of systemic inequality that does the most damage. A storm where the color of your skin determines whether you're protected or left behind. And that devastation? It doesn't come from nature, it comes from people. After a disaster like Katrina, if your white neighbors get rebuilding aid, and you don't, would you stay and rebuild, or leave everything behind? Number 3. Mississippi. Mississippi is home to one of the largest black populations in the United States. Nearly 40% of its residents are black. But despite this, black homeownership in the state remains significantly lower than that of white residents, and the gap has barely changed for decades. This isn't just the lingering effect of history. It's the result of modern policies quietly continuing the cycle of injustice. A key factor is the income gap. On average, black residents in Mississippi earn 27% less than their white counterparts. That makes it much harder to save for a down payment, afford interest payments, or maintain a home. On top of that, home insurance costs are exceptionally high, especially in disaster-prone areas where many black families live. What's the result? Not only is it harder to buy a home, but for those who do, holding on to it through crises is even more fragile. Mississippi doesn't lack black families dreaming of homeownership. It lacks a system that actually lets them achieve it. When the very people who have contributed the most to the culture and history of this state struggle to secure a roof over their heads, the problem clearly doesn't lie with individuals. It lies in how the entire system operates. Would you keep trying to buy a home if you knew your income is 30% lower, your insurance costs are higher, and your neighborhood home values are consistently undervalued, simply because of your skin color? Number 2. Ohio. You might live in the same neighborhood, own a house identical to your white neighbors, but in Ohio, if you're black, your home could be appraised for tens of thousands of dollars less. And when you go to the bank for financing, they won't just look at your income. They'll look at your zip code and the color of your skin. This isn't theory. It's the daily reality for thousands of black families in cities like Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. Multiple studies confirm that homes owned by black Ohioans are routinely undervalued, especially during refinancing or home equity assessments. That doesn't just strip them of potential wealth, it locks them out of financial opportunities like reinvestment, home upgrades, or supporting their children's education. One deep-rooted cause: geographically biased lending practices. Banks often deny funding or charge higher interest rates in predominantly black neighborhoods, regardless of an individual's strong financial profile. This forces black homeowners to endure a double burden: lower incomes and devalued assets. Ohio has no shortage of financially capable black citizens. What it does have is a system that continues to use outdated, racially biased approval models, baked into every spreadsheet, appraisal, and loan application. If you owned a $200,000 home, but a bank only valued it at $150,000 because your neighborhood is mostly black, what would you do to fight for your home's real worth? Number 1. Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, a black person and a white person can have the same income, the same credit score, yet the black applicant is twice as likely to be denied a mortgage. This isn't the 1960s. This is the reality of 2025. And this isn't just a feeling. It's backed by data. A study by the Center for Investigative Reporting revealed that in many areas of Philadelphia, black and Latino applicants are rejected for home loans at significantly higher rates than white applicants, even when they have similar income and assets. This isn't just about buying a home. It's about disrupting entire generational wealth-building journeys, shutting families out of the future they've worked hard to build. I once met Rashida, a nurse from West Philly. She's held a steady job for over 10 years, carefully prepared her loan documents, and still received 2 denial letters in the same month. The bank said it was because the area was high risk, but on the same block, a white colleague of mine got approved instantly. Same company, same salary. She told me. So where's the problem? Not in the paycheck, but in a loan evaluation system quietly embedded with racial bias, hidden in data models, algorithms, and financial jargon. Pennsylvania doesn't lack qualified borrowers. It lacks a fair and neutral standard of what qualified really means. And unless we face that truth head-on, then every call for financial equity is just empty rhetoric. Have you ever thought about moving your whole family just to a different zip code because it might finally get you approved for a home loan? 12 U.S. states where black Americans can barely buy a home. The shocking truth isn't just a headline. It's a wake-up call that the American dream of homeownership, something many take for granted, is still a long, uphill battle for far too many. The numbers, the policies, the deep-seated biases we uncovered today, they're just the tip of the iceberg. The real question is, will we fight to change this system, or let it silently repeat itself again and again? What are your thoughts? Have you, or someone you know, faced something similar? Share your story in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring hidden truths and untold stories like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next journey. This video is for educational and analytical purposes only. It does not represent any political stance or organization. Let's approach this topic with open minds and critical thinking.